Imagine your wife and child going away on vacation only never to return. It really happened to David Goldman, a New Jersey father who has been trying to get his son back from Brazil ever since his wife took the boy there more than 4 years ago. But so far, the Brazilian courts have denied his repeated requests. And now, as NBC's Lee Cowan reports, the story has taken a new twist.
By most accounts, David and Bruna Goldman were a happy couple. Their son Sean was born 5 months after they were married, and the family was rarely apart. Until, that is, David dropped the two of them off at the airport for a summer vacation in Bruna's native Brazil, never to see them again.
There are no words to describe what it is like to be walking in my shoes and trying to get my son home.
When Bruna landed in Rio de Janeiro, David says, she called him to say she wasn't coming home. Ever.
He loved Scooby-Doo. That was his favorite.
That was 4 years ago.
His clothes are still here. Obviously, they're not going to fit him any longer.
He hasn't changed a single thing in Sean's room since.
Sometimes you just try to put yourself like you're in another... This isn't happening. It's not real, and you're just like talking about a story that's not really true. But it is.
David got a court order demanding Sean be returned immediately to the U.S. for a custody hearing. Under international agreements signed by Brazil, it must legally do that within 6 weeks. But it took more than a year for Brazilian courts to act, and when they did, Goldman's attorney says they denied Sean's return for one reason.
That Sean had been living in Brazil for more than 1 year by that time with his mother, and it would be detrimental for such a young child to be separated from his mother at that point.
U.S. State Department officials tell NBC News that David Goldman did everything required under the law to get his son back, and say those officials at no point has the U.S. government ever considered this case closed. But the case just got more complicated. Last month, Sean's mother died while giving birth to another child. She had been remarried, legal in the eyes of Brazil, and now court documents show the new husband says he treats Sean like a son and vows to continue the custody fight in his wife's stead.
The only thing I can say is I'll never stop trying to bring him back, ever.
Neither Bruna's new husband or his attorney have returned repeated calls from NBC for comment. And David has questions too. Most notably, how can a child be naturalized in Brazil if a U.S. court has already said he belongs here with his father? For today, Lee Cowan, NBC News, Chicago.
David Goldman, good morning. This is just such a heartbreaking story and such a nightmare for you. For 4 years, you've been trying to get your son back. You've been to Brazil many times for these custody hearings. Then Sean's mom, she died last month while in delivery for another child. She was about to have another child. You thought at that point you would finally be able to get your son back. What happened?
Well, first, thank you for having me on this show. And I hope someone out there that can see and can help and maybe help other children and parents in the same situation. I was never notified by my wife, who were legally married in America, by her family, by the new husband, by her attorneys. Fortunately, I have friends who have been watching things go on down there, and I was notified about more than a week after she passed away. And as tragic as it is, I needed to be with my son. I haven't seen him in 4 years, and I've been desperately fighting to be with him. And here's my chance to go down and bring him home and be with my son. And apparently, when I get there, the new Brazilian husband had filed a case in the family court in Rio to remove my name from a Brazilian birth certificate that they issued for my son and replace it with his own, which would exclude me from ever even being my son's father. And so far, the Brazilian judicial system is letting him do this.
He's also seeking full custody. I know that your son is an American citizen. He was born in the United States. Has this government done enough to help you here? What have they done?
I know they've met with some officials in the Brazilian Central Authority, and they've written letters, And what I've been told is that we are considered a paper tiger. We'll write letters, we'll have meetings, but there's no accountability on Brazil for kidnapping my child. And in essence, this man who is no blood relation to my son can be any man taking any child to Brazil and file custody, and with the delayed process of those courts, they'll say, yes, this child belongs with that person.
Well, how is this man able to do it? Because my understanding is that this is breaking Brazilian law,
absolutely,
U.S. law, international treaties. So how is this possible?
I don't know. I know that this man comes from an influential family, and I don't know. It's just wrong on every level of the law in both countries and international law, and yet it was wrong even when my wife did this, according to the Hague treaties and the international law. As it was just reported, he should have been home within 6 weeks, and yet there was a sympathy, the mother and the child. It was never about separating the mother from the child. He was born here, we were married here, and our habitual residence was here, so a court here should decide jurisdiction. You can't flee and make up some story that I knew she was doing this or whatever she would say, and then they say, okay, you can stay here. You can't do it. And how can it be possible a non-blood relative, a non-blood person could take my child still?
It's very frustrating for you, I understand, and very, very emotional. I know you haven't been able to see your son. You have spoken to him a few times, trying to keep the memory alive. David Goldman, hopefully somebody watching, maybe a lot of people, would be able to express their outrage and help you. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Best to you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about David Goldman's battle to bring his son home, you can find it in the viewer resources section of our website, todayshow.com.